Hey guys, this is Rick coming at you with Weed to No Basis, the podcast for all things cannabis business related. Are you an entrepreneur? Have something you wanted to create, something you wanted to bring to life in the cannabis industry? Maybe you've always wanted to partake in one of the biggest industries in modern day history. This is the podcast to listen to. Yeah, and this is a lot of how the format is. It's just conversational. Just a lot of it's getting to know you guys. I mean, I know Amos. But and then kind of letting the people who are out in TV land or YouTube world or wherever, Facebook, just getting a sense of what you do, who you are, why you do what you do. And one of the things I wanted, it'll be interesting because I wasn't sure of the format, but mention partnerships. Yeah. Because it can be a touchy thing in business, having partners. Definitely. So, and is there anything that's off limits? Like anything that we should not talk about, or that you're not prepared. You know what I mean? Just any topics.
No.
We're pretty transparent. Yeah. It's one of our part of our core values, transparency.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So I'll write a lot of notes too. And
you want this, Tim?
I mean, we're filming, but real quick.
So yeah. So you said what you had the cold brew. The cold brew's gotten you a little jittery.
Yeah.
So interesting. So the cold brew, cold brew coffee gets you a little jittery.
Yeah.
And so for the record, we're in Texas, and this is a hemp-based. That's
CBD.
Yes, CBD. So
high CBD, low THC.
Yeah. So this isn't. Hey, Mom, just so you know, this is not weed. But I know you probably wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter either way. But this is it's hemp-based CBD. But you mentioned you wanted to light one up because the coffee got you jittery.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite combos. Like I'll drink a cold brew. Cold brew's a little bit higher in caffeine than regular, coffee, but I love the flavors. But then sometimes, especially if I didn't eat a very big meal, it gets me a little jittery. So I'll just go spark up one of these and balances me right out.
Nice. Yeah. And I don't want to get too technical, but I know that there's some people who will watch this and they might be curious. So about how many milligrams of CBD is in one of the hemp joints?
So it depends on the strain and the CBD percentage of that strain. This particular one, I think it's got about 150 milligrams in that 1 gram joint.
150 milligrams.
Yep. That's and this strain is a special sauce. It's a little more calming, a little more relaxing. It's higher in the terpene myrcene, which gives it that little more calming effect. Also, a lot of people don't know, I just want to throw in there, myrcene counteracts the short-term memory loss that THC can give. Yeah, pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing. Very cool. So we're here, guys. We're talking to Mike, the integrator. And if you don't know what an integrator is, that's okay. We may or may not get into how teams coalesce, and when you have a visionary, the integrator, and there's so my wife and I talk about I'm the kite. She calls me Planet Boy, and she's the string. So in a sense, that's kind of what an integrator and a visionary are, is the kite and the string. And just real quick, and Mike, we'll dive into getting you introduced and all that. But again, this is just totally off the cuff, and we may do just an intro later on, just a quick intro, and tag it out, put it on the front of this. So, how'd you guys meet? And again, go as deep as you want, wherever you want to go. Just how'd you guys meet? And where I want to go with this is then talk about business partnerships. Mm-hmm. So, and yes, we will talk about your brand and what you're doing, not only for the industry, but for the planet, honestly. And a little bit about each of you, but I just want to dive into, because you guys are business partners. Yeah. So talk about and I'm going to start with you. Talk about what that's like. Where'd you guys meet? How did this become an MJ's business partnership? And then we'll talk a little bit later about where you're headed, kind of that long-term vision.
Yeah, so it's a crazy story, actually. I was in Massachusetts at the time, and I ended up finding Amos through Instagram. And so someone that I knew was actually telling me hey, there's this guy in San Antonio that's, blowing up the CBD and juice game on Instagram. And so she sent it to me. I checked out the Instagram page that he had, the famous juice, juice page that he had, and I basically DM'd him, asking him hey, how can I get involved? Because my family was here at the time, but I had moved to Massachusetts to start a cannabis company because it was legal there. And so I DM'd Amos and was like, hey man, how can I get involved? My family's, back in San Antonio. I'm just trying to figure out how we can work together and maybe possibly do something because I was big into juice, you know, just like Amos. And so I flew down, me and him met up, and he told me a little bit about the juice, but mostly he told me about Emjayze.
So you guys initially connected, it was over social media, for just being so social media, it's a game changer. So when your parents tell you social media is a time waster, if you use it right, it's a game changer. But you were attracted not because of hemp or CBD, but because of what Amos was doing in the juice world.
Yep.
Okay, so go on.
Yep, and so he told me all about Emjayze. I, you know, saw the vision, and he just showed me how, you know, the future of, you know, how hemp could change the world, how you can use so many things to, you know, use hemp to make so many things, the industrial applications of hemp. I'd never really like dove into it too much, but Amos painted this like beautiful vision of the future of a world where everything is sustainable and it's a better environment and things are made out of hemp. And I believed in it 100%, and so we decided to partner up. He had already had, you know, basically been planning Emjayze for quite some time. How many years was it?
I had been working on the branding, networking, and the business planning for about 3 years by the time I met Mike.
So 3 years, we're in 2019, so 3 years ago or 3 years?
3 years ago
Yeah.
is when I started actively working on the branding and networking industry.
Nice. So this has been bouncing around, if you will, in here and in here for 3 years.
Longer.
So longer. So 3 years ago is when you started to act.
Action.
Gotcha.
The action started 3 years ago. The idea started 7 years ago.
So 7 years. So in those 4 years, if you were to go, so 7 years ago, so in 2012, we'll just use round numbers. So 4 years past 2016, what triggered? What happened where you finally said, after 4 years of sitting on an idea, that you said, now is the day where I act? What happened? What flipped? What switched?
It's hard to pinpoint exactly what, but probably the best way for me to describe it, there was this intuition. There was a foresight, I guess you could say, that I knew that this moment was coming with the Farm Bill and with hemp laws and regulations becoming more acceptable to hemp businesses. And I knew that this day was coming in the near future, whether that was going to be, you know, and this is me thinking in 2016, whether that was going to be a year from now or 5 years from now, I knew at some point the opportunity was going to open up, and I wanted to be prepared for that day. I wanted to be ready for a product to hit the shelves on that day, not be starting on that day. So I wanted to get the connections made. I wanted to get, you know, the supply of what exactly, I didn't know what product I was going to push yet. 7 years ago, I came up with the name Emjayze, and all I knew was I wanted to start a hemp company called Emjayze, but I didn't know what the product or the service was going to be yet. And so then I had to solidify, okay, where am I going to start? What product are we going to start with? So I started creating a business plan. It was actually around apparel, hemp apparel. And I guess it was just that kind of feeling that I need to be prepared for when the opportunity comes.
Gotcha. So you use the word intuition. Is it the same as when somebody says, I have a gut feeling? Is it the same kind of in the same realm of it's not something you can grab and touch, it's just something you know and feel inside?
Yeah. It was, pretty much like a gut feeling. It definitely was influenced by, you know, recreational legalization and seeing more states start to recreationally legalize marijuana and cannabis, and I just knew it's only a matter of time before the hemp side of things, the opportunities start really opening up.
When I met you, I knew you obviously as Amos, but the juiced up ninja. And there wasn't really hemp per se on the radar. You were the founder, and I don't know what the status is with the juice company, but you were in the juicing world. You owned a juice company, and that's what Mike said, that when you guys met, you were in the juicing. So there's a lot of, it seems, pivots, if you will. So 7 years ago, you had the idea for hemp. And then 4 years ago, there was the intuitive moment where you launched, but you had a juice business somewhere in that, right?
Yep.
So you were already an entrepreneur in another space.
Definitely.
Let's call it food and beverage, natural, wholesome wellness. What happened? And again, to the extent that you want to share, so what happened with the juice company? How did you pivot out of it? Where is it today? And then I want to know from Mike, were you disappointed when you realized that there was not going to be a juice, or that the vision that was painted didn't include juice? Like, was it a hard pivot for you to think, I really dig this dude because of his take on wholesome, natural wellness, vegan life, if you will, and now he's talking about hemp? So I just threw a lot at you guys, but if you could kind of deconstruct that.
Yeah. So I started Famous Juice because juicing transformed my life, and I wanted to share that experience with my community, my friends, and my family. I didn't start the company and it was premeditated, if that makes sense. I didn't get into juicing for the reason of starting a juice business. I got into juicing for my own personal health, and as it transformed me, I started sharing that story, and I saw a demand and I saw an opportunity, and so then I started selling juice. And so juicing was kind of just a chapter of my life in the juice business that taught me a lot about business, taught me a lot about health and nutrition, and ultimately it was something that I was able just to share with my community, but it wasn't like I went into it with the meaning to start a business. It's something that kind of just unfolded through God's will. And so once the opportunity came for Emjayze and Mike, saw the vision and invested into the company, and things started really taking off. I was running both for a time, and it was very stressful, because one of the mistakes and lessons that I learned through Famous Juice, one of the big mistakes that I made was not forming a solid team from the beginning of that company. But I started that business with $29 and a $50 juicer from my parents' kitchen, and I had no prior business experience in a formal business, and so I made a lot of mistakes, and I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know that I needed to form a good solid team, because without that team there was no way I could possibly run both. It was basically a one-man show for Famous Juice, and it was just unsustainable trying to start and grow this brand and at the same time trying to grow Famous Juice. And so I decided that I was going to basically close Famous Juice Company to pursue Emjayze full time, because like I mentioned, this has been the original vision. It's been the original plan before I even knew what juicing was. And so seeing this take off, I was faced with that decision of like, I need to focus on one. I can't be splitting myself like this. There's got to be some give. And so I had to decide on which one, and it was a stressful time trying to decide what to do in that scenario, but ultimately it felt like the right decision was to do Emjayze full time. But I may actually be starting Famous Juice back up with a couple of partners, so that it hasn't completely, I never closed out the LLC. I still have all the equipment, and basically the business is still able to be picked back up.
All right, so you kind of just put it on the shelf.
Yeah, so to speak.
Gotcha. Okay. And I'm curious, so you were attracted originally because of the juice idea, and or what Amos was doing as the juiced up ninja. And what was it like at that moment when you realized that it wasn't going to be juice, it was going to be something in the cannabis world?
Right.
And I don't know what your experience is in cannabis, but I know for me, when it dawned on me that I was in the cannabis industry, there was a very introspective moment where I was like, holy shit. Like, I'm doing something in an industry where I was told I should be out of, I shouldn't be in, and stay away and all that. So what was that like for you?
Yeah, very high risk industry, cannabis. But I had been working in the cannabis industry before I met Amos for like a good year up in Massachusetts, because there it's legal recreationally. And so when he told me the vision for Emjayze, it was more of like a better opportunity, that I saw. And it was pretty amazing, because I actually also did juice when I lived here in San Antonio before I moved to Massachusetts. So I had done juice, and for the exact same reasons that Amos was doing it, not to start a business, but really just for my own personal self. And then a small business like grew out of that as well, not to the extent to where Amos was doing it, but I would just like sell my friends juice, for $5, $10 here and there. And so when Amos kind of told me to pivot in the direction that he was going, he also expressed that it's not like the juice was going to be gone forever. Like you just said, like there's always a possibility that it could return. And so it was just a very, very big opportunity that I saw with Emjayze, and so I was like, man, let's just, all gas, no brakes with this company, and we can always get back to the juice later. It seems like that's actually what's manifesting right now.
Nice. What did you do in the cannabis industry back in Massachusetts?
And so in Massachusetts, even though that cannabis is legal recreationally, it wasn't legal to sell just up until like a few months ago, but it was legal to gift. And so we actually started like a little club where people could come in, they could gift cannabis to one another, they could learn information about it. I read like a 4,000-page article on cannabis, so just got super knowledgeable as I could. And we just started like a little club for people to come in and talk and gift, and the growers would come and share their growing experience with each other. And so it was pretty cool.
Nice. It's interesting you mentioned the whole gift, because I've heard of, I think it's in New York City, where there's a gifting concept, but you actually buy like a $30 bottle of juice.
Right.
And you get gifted an eighth, or
right.
you get gifted, a box of pre-rolls.
Yep.
So was that kind of the concept of what was, okay, so.
Yeah, people would like pay for memberships. They'd come into we'd give out like brochures that they'd pay for and like informational paperwork, and they'd basically be gifted some cannabis with it. So
Nice.
It blew up, man. It's actually still going on right now, and I never, completely got rid of that business. I'm still operating it right now in Massachusetts with some people that I know.
Nice. So it's kind of it's interesting, because I have read about that, and I didn't know that's what you were doing in Massachusetts. But the first time I read about it at a company, I think in Brooklyn or somewhere, I was like, what a very unique and distinct way to develop a way to transact.
Yeah.
It's kind of walking a fine line.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're skirting kind of, it's a little grayish, if you will, but it works.
Yeah.
And a lot of these companies, they have websites, and you literally can order a bottle of juice on their site for $25. They'll deliver it, and oh, by the way, here's an eighth of, or here's whatever that is, and it's a really unique way. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this industry, is because of the regulatory issues and compliance and advertising, and they're not available to us. Like, we can't just run a Facebook ad campaign. We can't just offer things on Instagram. We can't do the things that a traditional business can. So the beautiful thing is that we have to think, because it's our lifeline, out of that proverbial box.
Yeah.
So, but speaking of that, I'm curious, because I know recently your Instagram account was shut down, and I think it's happened in the past. And again, there's no pointing fingers here. Because I literally got an email today, like a few hours ago, from a friend of mine. He's in somewhere on the East Coast, but he said his Instagram account keeps getting flagged, and I'm not an Insta expert. I don't know. And he asked, and I couldn't, if I could go look at his account and what's the flag, and I'm not an Insta expert, but you've experienced your account being like shut down. What's that like? How did you get over it? And what are you going to do to either combat it or to play by the rules?
Yeah. So what it's like is, it sucks.
Was it just boom, you're done, or did you get notified?
Yeah. No notifications before or after. It's just gone, like it never existed. And that's what sucks about it, is there's no warning or anything like that. It's just literally you wake up, try to log in, and the page no longer exists. And so it could be frustrating, because Instagram is one of the premier platforms for marketing organically, and through paid advertisements, which we can't really participate in anyways. But Instagram's the primary way that we show the brand. We show what we're about, and we show the lifestyle. And so when our Instagram gets shut down, it definitely impacts us, because we primarily, when we talk to people and network with people, we primarily send them to our Instagram so they can see what we're about. That's the best way for people to get a complete picture of what we're about. And so when it gets shut down, it just stops everything. It slows everything down. And saying it stops everything is a little bit of an exaggeration. Obviously, we still continue business. We still have our clients. We still promote through other platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Snapchat and YouTube. But Instagram's just the main one. And so this is the second time it's gotten shut down. And unfortunately, these are the types of challenges that we have to overcome in the industry in this transitional period to full legality and out of the gray. Like right now, we're in the gray area, even though the federal farm bill has federally legalized hemp and removed it from the Controlled Substances Act, and even Texas has done the same. we're still dealing with the residual effects of past policies, whether it's through banking, which is the same, or merchant processors, or social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook. And so going forward, what we're trying to do is trying to mitigate the risk by posting more of the lifestyle that we're about and more about our mission, which is protecting the environment, educating people about the problem of single-use plastic and petroleum-based plastics, non-recyclables, and really just the problem of the waste crisis that we're in. And so focusing a little bit more on that, and a little bit less on posting, joints and flour, although we'll still post that because we still got to make sure people fully understand what we're about. But previously it had been predominantly flour and joints and smoking photos, which can be easily misinterpreted as marijuana. And because we're in Texas, the bots that scam over the Instagram feeds and profiles could mistake us for an illegal marijuana company.
One of the underlying messages, so just to be clear, what we talk about on the show here, whether it's you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Stitcher or iTunes, is we cater to the cannabis business startup entrepreneur. So we touch on a lot of things that are relevant to that startup entrepreneur. It could be marketing, it could be ideation, the art of the start or pivoting, and how that would matter to you. So I'm going to take a little pivot here. So you mentioned earlier that, Mike, you're the integrator. So for folks who don't quite know what that means, maybe you've heard it, visionary integrator. Talk to us a little bit about what a day-to-day integrator does in a company. And not that it has to be a cannabis company, but what does that mean to be an integrator and part of Emjayze?
Yeah, so it's a pretty important role, in business. When I was running the business in Massachusetts, I had to act as the visionary, and I really had to act as all the roles. But by reading this book, Traction, that Amos introduced me to, which is a very, very good book, it explains that role of each teammate. When you get into your role and you just can basically be the best at that specific role is when your business is going to grow. And so the integrator role is really, Amos, is a natural visionary, and I see myself as a natural integrator. And so Amos just, he comes up with big visions, and he paints big pictures, of the future. And, he'll talk about the future, he'll talk about the future of the business. And he's really future orientated. Whenever we have meetings, it's always like the huge picture and exactly what we need to do. If you can imagine a funnel, it's going to be like at the top of the funnel, right? So it's like all the big picture things. The integrator's role really, what I'm see myself as good at is getting all the details, refined and mapped out in order to make the big picture come to life. And so you really work with, the team that you have, you really work with the players that you have, and you really get people to see the vision, and it's really about clarity, and in the meetings, Amos will, paint big pictures, and then I'll come in and I'll talk about the small things that we do on a day-to-day, or a week-to-week or a month-to-month in order to get to these big picture goals that we have. So it's just, really refining, and chiseling the vision.
So is it fair to say that an integrator is kind of somebody who's in the weeds, if you will?
Exactly.
Okay, so they thrive in the weeds, so to
Yes.
speak. And the opposite, if you will, is the visionary. One, like you mentioned, Mike, who's they see the big picture, that 50,000-foot view. And tell us about that. And I'm going to share, before Amos says this, is understanding where you're headed, big picture vision, is an absolute must. In fact, it's a foundational element. And some people have a natural gift for being a visionary, and some people are gifted in tactical things in the weeds. So, but I'm curious. So, paint the vision for us. Let the world know. And I'm really curious. Where's Emjayze going? So here we are in 2019. Paint us a picture of 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah. So. The vision really is a world that is completely been integrated with hemp-made products, where literally it becomes commonplace for us to be sitting on hemp-made chairs. And this camera as well as the stand could be made out of hemp biocomposite plastics and materials. Hemp paper comes back into the norm. But for us with Emjayze, it's really about being an example. So about being an example, particularly to other cannabis companies, but really all businesses, that hemp can be a sustainable source of packaging. One of the major problems in the cannabis industry, and really in all business, but specifically the cannabis industry, is the use or misuse of packaging and how detrimental that is to the environment. And I keep bringing up the environment and sustainability because that's really at the core of what we're trying to bring awareness about, the sustainable aspects of the industrial hemp. And so I really see a future where the majority of cannabis companies, let's say 3 to 5 years from now, are starting to package in cannabis. It just makes sense. You know, if you have a cannabis company, why would you not use a more sustainable package in order to get those products out? And taking it even a step further is also an example we like to set, which is something we're strategizing right now, is creating reusable, refillable packaging. So getting away from single-use plastic and single-use packaging. Because right now, we solve half the problem right now of sourcing packaging from a renewable resource as opposed to petroleum-based plastics and packaging, and tree paper packaging, which is not as renewable as hemp-based. But post-use, after our package has gone to the customer, they now own that package too. When they buy the product, they're also buying the package. And that also means that they're responsible for what happens to that package. Unfortunately, because of the behaviors of consumers in America that have been driven by big business, most consumers don't dispose of their packaging properly or in a way that is going to be the least detrimental to our environment. So one of the big solutions is creating really nice quality packaging that is reusable and refillable. And I see that happening not only with hemp-made packaging, but just in general, both in the cannabis industry and in just business in general, because we're reaching an emergency kind of moment when it comes to the climate and the environment and the waste crisis. A lot of people don't know, but there's a recent study that came out, and this is just one of many, where by the year 2050, there's going to be more plastic by weight in the ocean than there are fish. That's within our lifetimes, and that's kind of crazy. It's insane, you know, to think about. And that's a problem, if you can't tell, that I'm particularly passionate about, and I think that hemp could play a big role in being a solution to that problem. The flower in the pre-rolls is really just a way for us to get people's attention, because people are already familiar with this, right? When somebody sees this, they know exactly what it is, and they know exactly what to do with it.
Yeah, you think of this.
Right? So we take something in the cannabis space that is familiar to introduce them into something that is unfamiliar, an unfamiliar use of cannabis, which is the hemp paper packaging or the hemp plastic packaging. And so really, it's not so much about the flower for us, although it has a lot of benefits and it helps a lot of people. But like you just mentioned, pre-roll companies are a dime a dozen. There's so many pre-roll companies, there's so many pre-roll services, and what sets them apart is the vision and the mission. And so for us, we tell our customers once they come, let's say we do promo events. We do a lot of promo events at grand openings, different health and fitness events. And when we do these events, we have a giant jar of flour sitting there, and we're in Texas, so that gets people's attention. And so they come over, inquiring about it, and we let them know that the flour did its job. It got you over here, and now we can educate you about hemp plastic and hemp paper and hemp apparel. And so the pre-rolls are a way to get people's attention, help people with the benefits of CBD, but really just to bring their attention to the other aspects of cannabis. And so we'll still sell pre-rolls for sure. And we're actually getting into creating our own packaging. So being a hemp packaging manufacturer of both plastics and hemp paper packaging, this way not only can we create our own packaging for Emjayze, but we can supply other companies that are interested in packaging in hemp as well.
So interesting. So what you described then in the vision, and that you're going to sell a lot more pre-rolls, And then that's the fact that you give them away for free at events. And I've been at those events and I've seen the big, huge jars of them. So is it fair to say that at those events, a pre-roll is a loss leader? Because it costs your company something to make this.
Definitely.
In the pre-roll inside of here, well, the actual joint. So I don't know what that cost is, but you give them away for free. So in a sense, it's advertising and it's a loss leader because you're, again, my words, not yours, but the intent is when that person comes to you, into your world and they take the pre-roll, are you capturing information like an email address or some sort of data that you're compiling?
Definitely.
Okay. So then you might for that name, if we're getting real into the weeds here, folks, and pay attention to this because this is advertising marketing 101. So you're essentially exchanging somebody's data for a $3 or $4 pre-roll. So customer acquisition, is it fair to say then at an event like that, it's about $3 for somebody's data?
Yeah,
Give or take.
roundabout.
Give or
Yeah.
take. Think about that, guys, because advertising is not free. And there might be a loss leader that's giving away a free t-shirt that costs you $4. But collecting somebody's data, then maybe you add them to an email list and you can remarket to them, right? So what does that look like from the integrator standpoint? So you finish an event, you've got a list of names and emails. Tell us, like, what does that look like? And again, you don't need to divulge any trade secrets, but just for the people out there who don't understand the importance of loss leaders or guerrilla marketing, which you do really, really well at. But then capturing the data and how important that is. What does that look like for the day-to-day integrator who's doing stuff in the business?
Yeah, so it's great. It looks great. I love looking at all the emails that we capture and just even text messaging. Text messaging marketing is, I think, going to be big in the future. It's it's very, very small right now, but sometimes people will get texts and there will be marketing schemes, or I guess you can call them, but by getting phone numbers, by getting social media usernames, by getting the emails, by getting them to post and reshare and tag MJs on the social media. The way I look at it is this is part of our marketing budget, to do things like this. And so basically you take the marketing budget and, you divide it up into joints, and then you give those joints out. And so it's just, I think marketing is, famous Seth Godin, all these marketing guys that you pay attention to, they look at marketing as one of the biggest, differentiators between businesses. They say if Nike were to come out with a hotel tomorrow, everybody would go. But if Hyatt makes a shoe, nobody's going to buy it, right? So it's like, it's all about branding and it's all about marketing for us at MJ's because of our bigger vision and because, like Amos shared, monetarily, it's not going to make sense to a lot of people because they say, okay, your product is joints, but what you're selling is this vision and this idea of a sustainable future. It's not going to make sense to them unless you think of it in a stance of you're building a brand and you're really trying to market your brand. And at the end of the day, we are aware that we need people to help us change the world and to help build this bigger vision. And we're just not going to do it just by being worried about the money. And so this is something that, we look at as it's worth it.
Nice. And something also to pull out of that is what you're building is a list. This is called a list, an email list, and it could be data, a database, could be just a simple email, could be a name and email. But here's the beauty of that. For those of you who are, I'm just going to put this together, is if and when your Instagram account gets shut down or Facebook, you lose that. You heard it from Amos. Your list you own. That's data that you own. You can start a new Instagram page and email that entire list and say, follow us. But the list, guys, is a massive asset and it's highly undervalued. And interesting, so I read, this is just a total sidebar, but I read daily, it's called Elephant Journal. And it's kind of a mindful publication and a lot of good stuff. It keeps me in tune to a part of the universe that I wouldn't normally be in tune to. But yesterday, the founder wrote an email blast and he said, we've just been purchased. And it wasn't necessarily because they have a cool logo or that they have some really cool articles. It's because they have a list of over 300,000 people. So they were purchased for, I can't remember the number, but about $19 million. And their list was over 340 something thousand. But really what somebody was purchasing, think about it, it's an asset purchase. because a magazine can be duplicated, guys. This can be duplicated. The things that are intangible that you own can't. And the value of the asset is oftentimes so overlooked. But consider that, guys. High Times was High Times sold about 2 years ago? Something like that for $40-something million, guys. Think about it, it's a magazine. And you can replicate a magazine, but you can't replicate the following. You can't replicate the vision. You can't replicate the tribe of fanatical followers who have aggregated around a brand. And there's tremendous value in that. And I can't stress that enough. So I love that part of your marketing toolkit is giving stuff away for free. A loss leader. For those of you who have run Facebook ads or Instagram ads, the way to think about it is you're spending $1 to get 2. So their loss leader can be almost like a slot machine, where every time you put $2 in, you're going to get 4 out. So that brings another question, is your average client value. So when a customer comes into your world and they make their first purchase, about how long do they stay a part of your ecosystem, your world, and how much money do they spend? Like over 3 months, 6 months, or do you know like average? What's a client worth?
It's hard to say because we launched the first product about 6 months ago, so we have just a little bit of data to work with. I would say most of the customers are return customers. After they try the product and learn about the vision, most of them become diehard fans, because we're not just another pre-roll company. We're not just another CBD company. There's something bigger attached. Yeah, I think that's most of them are return, but it's hard to give. We haven't got a value to that yet, just because of how early it's been.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. So it's been about 6 months here, and you're collecting that data. But just imagine this, folks. If we could just play with this scenario for a while, is you're giving away let's call it even numbers, a $4 pre-roll. Somebody is added to your list. Maybe they end up purchasing online several times. They may have a total purchase value over 6 months of $200. So give or take, guys, I'm using just play numbers, but think about that. You're giving them $4 to sell them $200. Think about how some people are afraid to do that. Like, I don't want to run a Facebook ad because it's going to cost me $200, even though it could net me long-term thousands upon thousands.
Yeah.
Guys, what marketing is, especially in this world, it's very counterculture, it's difficult, you have to be out of the box, but understand that if you do it right, and these guys do, giving away $4 to capture 200, I do that all day and 10 times on Sunday. So consider those things, guys. Consider what you're hearing here from a company that is essentially selling a joint. There's a big vision here. So they say that some of the most prolific companies in history were the result of a pair. Apple, Jobs and Wozniak. Disney, Walt and Roy. The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur. One of them was an integrator. That's why I love this. One of them was a visionary. In other words, Walt envisioned a mouse and a kingdom, and Roy built it, right? I don't know which Wright brother envisioned flying, but one of them built it. Just like Jobs and Wozniak, one of them envisioned this incredible system, and one of them went out and built it. So how does that feel when you think about that? I'm a big fan of partnerships where there is an integrator and a visionary, because, again, I just pointed to 3 examples. There's probably many, many more out there where doing it the right way, in the right fashion, at the right time, with the right people could be a magical combination. What are your guys' thoughts on that? How about I'll start with you, Mike?
Yeah, so it's crucial, in my opinion. Both me and Amos first tried to start a business just on our own, and even though it could have, continued to maintain, it's just a little bit, harder to do things on your own. And I would even argue the fact that it's harder to do things just, with like a team of 6, but it's good to get that visionary and that integrator, get those 2 things hashed out first, and then start to put the rest of the team together. Because you could have a team of 5 people, but if you're all integrators or you're all visionaries, someone has to take the opposite role, because it has to be a yin and a yang. These 2 things just go together. And it's better when you're naturally that. Amos is just naturally a visionary. You know, there's been times where he said things and, you know, and I've came over the top and asked him questions, and he's just so into the visionary role. I'll just tell him, you're visionaried out right now. You know, you just can't even, you know,
Visionaried out.
Yeah, see the smaller picture right now, you know. And so it's crucial, you know, in my opinion. It's just something that's very, very necessary in any business. So I would urge people out there that want to start a business to start looking. You know, Amos actually has a pretty crazy story when me and him first met up, and yeah, I'll let him tell that. But I think it's a big part of it all. Yeah.
Yeah, huge. Like, I would say, you know, my advice to people watching would be to, first of all, develop enough self-awareness to understand which one are you. You know, are you the visionary? Are you the integrator? From there, you know, you can help cultivate more of those skills while at the same time looking for your visionary or integrator counterpart, depending on which one you are. Doing things without that other role is definitely doable and possible. It's just more stressful because you end up doing a lot more of the things that you don't enjoy doing or you're not naturally gifted at. And so when you're doing things that you don't enjoy doing, you know, every day, it takes a toll on you because you have to take the time to mix in doing what you love to do with doing what you don't love to do. And most people want to start a business because you know, they're passionate about it or they want to do more of what they love to do. And so that makes it very difficult when you're having to play both roles. It really just slows things down, you know, and it bogs you down, and it keeps you from doing what you do best, if that makes sense. And so just through God's plan, you know, I had just finished reading Traction, where I was introduced to this concept of a visionary and an integrator, and that's when me and Mike had met. And I literally, our first meeting, I had the book in my hand and I was like, I'm looking for an integrator. I don't know if you're that or not, but that's what I'm on a search for right now. And I told him, like, through my you know, just self-development and self-awareness, I've come to realize I'm a visionary to the T. You know, there's a little test you can take through the book that'll give you some guidance. And I'm a visionary and I need an integrator because I've been operating with my first business without an integrator, and I've definitely suffered and struggled without that role. And literally Mike was just like, I'm an integrator. Like, and that was how the relationship started.
You know what I love, Amos, is you use, so when generally speaking, when we listen to folks talk, certain things glow or they stand out or emerge, and you use the phrase self-awareness. And folks, I personally, and you heard it from Amos as well, I can't express enough how that is so critically important. And if you guys want to know exactly what I mean by that, look at the episode we did with Jesse Elder. I'm not sure what episode number that is, but check it out. Jesse Elder is an entrepreneur, but he's in tune with something that's very deep, self-awareness. It's a great episode, guys. So go back, because we touch on that in a very deep level, episode 7 or 8, something like that. But anyway, Jesse Elder, guys, we talk about why that's so critically important as an entrepreneur. It's not always about tactics and strategy. It's about knowing where you're headed and knowing that you're the right person in the right role. So my wife just walked in. So hey, Lise. So I'm gonna wind all the way back. Now that we've had a little bit of time to have some conversation and get to know each other a little bit, and I've known you for a while, but for the listeners and the ones who are viewing this. So we're here in San Antonio and we're outside. We try to change the location up just so that it's not monotonous for y'all who are watching this on our different channels. But we're on the patio. It's a beautiful day, and I hope it's not too loud, the guys cutting grass out there. But it's as real and raw as it gets, guys. No studio. We're here outside. But I'm here with Mike, the integrator, and Amos from Emjayze. But something you may not know, which is interesting, is about Amos. I'm gonna tap him in just a second, but is how your life experiences parlay. They all matter. Everything you've done in life matters. You may not understand it or grasp it today, but it matters. So one of the things that's pretty cool about you that you may not know about him is American Ninja Warrior, and the TV show. If you're not quite sure, I'm literally talking about the TV show. Tell us a little bit of, give us some history about that, because you were an American Ninja Warrior. Or you are. I mean, you have the title. So tell us about that, because I've seen you do backflips and walk on rails and like Spider-Man stuff, and so tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, just quick little background, since I was 5, I've been a tumbler. So basically I just done flips since I was 5. That was my way of entertaining myself when I didn't have anything else to do. I have 2 older siblings that were very active in football, baseball, cheerleading, and I was always dragged along to their practices and their games. And so what I would do is flip. I'd go behind the bleachers and just flip back and forth. So I've always been an active kid. I've always been real acrobatic. And about 5 years ago, I started doing parkour formally, which is basically a form of movement, which is getting from point A to point B as quickly, smoothly, and efficiently as possible. People tend to throw flips in there, which then becomes a separate practice called free running, which I do that as well too. But going into the parkour community, I met a couple friends that had been on American Ninja Warrior, and they introduced me to the scene and the obstacles and started playing on them, and of course naturally was just good at it. So I submitted an application. I got a call to be on the show in season 9, which was actually here in San Antonio, and the experience was mind-blowing. It's amazing, the production dollars that go into that show and how everything is set up. It's just amazing. And then at the same time, being able to collaborate and meet all these other amazing ninjas, that everybody's got their own background and their own skill set. I'm a tumbler and I come from the parkour scene, versus you might have somebody who's a gymnast, or you might have somebody who's a rock climber, or you might have somebody who's a slackliner or a trampolinist, and you have all these different people from different backgrounds that are coming together to try to conquer this one course. And it's a very supportive community, which is awesome. But the show, the experience is unlike anything you could prepare for. The only way to be prepared for it is just to get experience on the scene and on the set and on those obstacles.
Dang. And that's where the whole juiced up ninja comes from.
Yeah.
So you just kind of meld what you were doing, your life in the juice world, my words, not yours, and the fact that you are a legit ninja. So
yeah,
an American Ninja Warrior. So I don't mean like a ninja like karate. No, don't take any offense by that. But like an American Ninja Warrior. So you grew up in San Antonio, Mike, and then you moved to Massachusetts, and then you're back in San Antonio. Yeah. Fill us in, like how did the journey start?
Yeah. So actually, before I even lived in San Antonio originally, I had moved around quite a bit, as a child, and it's not because my dad was in the military or anything like that, because he had got out by the time I was born. So I was actually born in Germany while he was still there, and then I moved here to the States, but he would just constantly, either be let go, of a job, or he would get a promotion, and it would always be in a different state, and of course he would always take it. And so, I've lived in, multiple places, California, New Jersey. I went to 4 different high schools actually, in 4 different states. And so San Antonio just happens to be the place that I've lived the longest at one time, and so, just, grew up, complete, regular life. I just used to work in furniture actually when I lived up at Ashley Furniture, when I lived here in San Antonio. And it was just, every single day I was working at the furniture store, and I always knew and I always had some kind of, pull that, I just wanted to do a little bit more, for the community, for myself, and then I started to get into personal development books. Tony Robbins really just blew up and got big at the time. And I just said, let me just, go out and take the leap of faith, and really do it. And, I started to read the Bible a whole lot, and, just really got myself motivated to go out there and try to do something for myself and have the time freedom. And I've always had been real big on self-awareness, and so I knew that I could do it. I just, it just took me quite some time to actually build up the strength to actually go out there and completely drive up to Massachusetts on my own while my whole family was here. And me and my friend up in Massachusetts started that business there. And it was really the time where I just kind of left everything behind, drove my car right up to Massachusetts, about a 24-hour drive. And me and him got a small place. We were sleeping on the floor, and just started this whole entrepreneur thing from the ground, literally.
I love hearing people's stories of like where they're from, like what drove them to become the person they are today, especially for entrepreneurs, because there's generally something. I love that you literally started from the ground and you were sleeping on the floor. So I like teasing those out because there's no reason why anybody out there should not or cannot be a successful entrepreneur, regardless of who you are, what your background is, your story, your ethnicity, whatever, where you're from, silver spoon or plastic spoon. What really matters is I love the whole self-awareness, and you guys touched on the beginning of the importance of team. And team, I'll pull that out a little bit more. It doesn't have to be the people you work with. It could be the people that are following you on your mission, your tribe, if you will. So what's next for Emjayze? Like what's on the immediate horizon, for let's say the rest of 2019 and maybe beyond? Like where are you going to be? Where can, in a sec, where can folks find you? But what's next? What's going on now?
Yeah, so definitely expanding our distribution to multiple states. There's a couple of states we're already starting to break into, but starting distribution in other states is definitely in the near future. And then as well as, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, shifting our packaging to being more refillable, reusable packaging. And so that's going to be a real interesting system that we're going to have to navigate and work out. But that's something you guys can look forward to, and that's an example we'd like to set of how it can be done. And so that's something they can definitely expect. Definitely breaking into, still in Texas, Austin, Dallas, Houston, making it more available. We get a lot of DMs and messages through Instagram asking if we're available in Dallas or Houston or El Paso and these different major cities here. And so expanding that, and then just growing the team, because with a big dream, you have to have a big team. And so, hiring more people to help us with joint production as well as media production, because as you know, digital media is really the cornerstone of marketing for us. And so Tim was here taking some photos, but we really want to get a full-time video guy. We really want to get a full-time multimedia manager. And so really just building out the infrastructure of this team so that we can accomplish this big vision.
Nice, love it. I love it. I love when people start with the vision and they're able to articulate it. And not only that, but in such a way that people are attracted to you. That is genius marketing right there, guys. Being able to articulate your vision so that people not only buy into your product or service, but they buy into your team. And it's a wonderful thing when it all comes together. Where can we find you guys? Website, Instagram, like where do you want people to go find you in the virtual or real world?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook at Emjayze Hemp, as well as on Twitter. Our website, where you can order online as well, is www.emjayze.com. Now, Emjayze is spelled a little bit different than it may sound. It's a little play on words here. So that's how you spell Emjayze when you're looking for us on social media platforms. And then you can find us at local CBD shops, smoke shops, and vape shops is where you can find our product, as well as we're actually in a hotel, Hotel Havana, down on the Riverwalk. They've been an interesting model, that we've been distributing out of that's not in the vape, smoke, CBD world, and it's been doing pretty well. Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that your products are now carried in a hotel. That's pretty cool, guys. The sky's the limit. I mean, there's no reason why things cannot happen the way you envision it. So, I didn't know that till like just this moment that you guys are in the Hotel Havana. That's badass.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So, is there any final, as we kind of come to the end and wrap this up? Are there any final parting words or things you want to let the audience know or the world know about what you guys are doing at your company?
Yeah, I would say the main mission, or one of the main things that we want to let people know and have you educate your friends and family and community about, is the simple concept of cannabis is more. So we use this hashtag, cannabis is more. And that's to educate people and have you then talk about and educate people on this fact that cannabis is more than just CBD products. Cannabis is more than just medical marijuana and THC products. It's also sustainable packaging. It's also sustainable plastics, and it's also sustainable apparel and textiles. And so that's really a big thing that we want to let people know, that there's so much more to cannabis than just CBD and THC. And in fact, we believe that the industrial applications of hemp, the ones I just mentioned, are going to have a far bigger impact on our economy and our environment.
Nice. I love that. Hashtag cannabis is more.
Yep.
I'm going to be using that, guys, and I'm going to compel all you guys who are listening to to use. And I love the way you framed that. It's not just about the plant anymore. It's so much more. Cannabis is more. Hashtag. Fellas, thank you guys for being here. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. And
Thank you.
we'll let you guys know when this goes live. For now, this is Mike and Amos, Emjayze. We're coming at you guys. Remember, you're listening to Weed to Know Basis, and if you're watching right now, then you have a Weed to Know Basis. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.